Hi everyone, and great to see you here. Welcome to I guess the first virtual Enterprise Ethereum Alliance London meetup. Yeah, we're really happy to be starting these meetups back up again. We've had a bit of a hiatus since March of last year, where we've been running them fairly regularly for a number of years. And it's just taken a little bit of time with all of the adjustments and so on, with going virtual and so on and so forth, to really get ourselves back to a place where we're up and running again with them.
Well, hi everybody. Hi Connor, it's good to see you. Dan, I see my colleague Nick Kritikos is on there. We just came off of we have a thing for the Baseline Protocol community called the Baseline, which is a live stream show we do every week at noon on YouTube. So we just finished that, and so I'm kind of resetting now. So yeah, the Baseline Protocol is let me tell you what it's not. It's not a platform. It's not a token. It's not a scheme. It's not a chain. It's not a business. It is a design pattern. It is a standard in the making under the venerable Oasis Foundation, or the Oasis organization, which is standards body behind things like SGML and SAML and AMQP and MQTT and all these other core standards. They serve up to things like ISO and IEEE and the like. So the Baseline Protocol came out of work that Consensus and Ernst & Young and Microsoft cooked up a couple of years ago, and we donated all of it under public domain license to Oasis, which now operates the Baseline Protocol. Launched it in March of last year, and went from a couple of companies to now uncountable number of companies and people. Just on our Slack channel, just the one channel has 1,000 people, pretty active. So we won the new Standard of the Year award from Oasis, which was fun, and we hope to win the everybody's using this award in years to come now. Baseline Protocol comes from a thought process I like to call butt to butt. But enterprises have real legitimate problems with the notion of using public blockchain for business. And I'll just skip ahead on some reasons why. Oops. And I will get control of my screen and do that. And 3, 2, 1. There you go. So the challenges for CISOs, we have this character Cecil the CISO and Celia the CISO, and Celia and Cecil don't like public blockchain because of their notion of it as if you start with the notion that blockchain is a fancy secure database, you're in the weeds right from the start. Public and private blockchains are, as I often say, digital nudist colonies, right? They don't like compartmentalization. They don't like the things that we expect in a database. And they're not secure against surveillance. There's maybe, even a private one might be a little bit more secure against tampering, but they're not secure against surveillance. In fact, it is a massive threat surface increase to put data from your business that may be sensitive in certain contexts, even if it's, even in its initial context is not sensitive. The data or the metadata, if that can be learned or gleaned from a private blockchain, even a Fabric channel or something like that, by a competitor that might be in your supply chain somewhere and party to that particular private blockchain, you're just a nudist colony on a private beach. Anybody that gets access to that private beach is going to know where everything, all the goodies are. And indeed, if any CISO would know, using encryption as your means by which you compartmentalize information is sort of like wearing a Speedo to a nudist colony, right? It's not like you're leaving a lot to the imagination. I can figure things out, especially in the age of AI and machine learning. So private blockchains, are good shared databases, but you should think of them as shared databases. And I think that those two words help C-level executives at least know what they're getting into when they get into it. So I'm not here to say that private blockchain is a bad idea. I am here to say that the way a lot of us have thought of it for the last 5 years is dangerous. And so what can you use a blockchain for then, public or private? And the answer is something we've been doing for 50 years or more, certainly my career, 30 years. And that is we can use it to help with integration of multi-party workflows, because now we have this always on bulletin board that looks a lot like the design pattern we've been using for integrating different systems of record. That is, if you have two machines, any distributed systems person knows, you need some kind of common frame of reference so that you can get the ordering of events right, and that you can be sure that state changes in machine A are consistent with state changes in machine B. You can do that by primarying one of those machines, or more often you create some kind of integration bus where you've got a new machine that traffic cops the other two. Well, every time you do that, it costs you some money. And now you've got a new silo of integration, whether that's a private blockchain or a traditional system like Q series. And by the way, I don't want to suggest that the baseline protocol does everything that MQ series does. That MQ series does a lot of things. I don't think it's going away. Your banks know it very well. But but for the one job of maintaining a consistency check in a bulletin board structure, the public blockchain might be a useful one if we can use it in such a way that nobody looking at that public blockchain can ascertain anything about who we are, what we're doing with or with whom we are doing it. And that's what the baseline protocol engages. So the big mega trend here is that we're going from the idea of BPM and internal systems integration to multi-party workflows. There was a pretty good article the other day out of SAP on how, by the end of the year, we're going to really be seeing this turn towards, I need to integrate with not only my major suppliers and buyers, with whom I have, some expected system integration, but also the 30% of companies that are just not doing enough volume with me to warrant that integration bus being thrown up and costing us CapEx to do. Well, if you don't have one of those, you're 33% of the time, you're dealing basically in sharing PDFs or emails or faxes or what have you. And 33% of the time that happens, you've got an error. And that error costs 50 cents just to track down. That's not including the fact that you're up for millions in make good because your buyer is calling you up saying, your shipment's supposed to show up today. And you say, well, no, my record says it's supposed to show up 2 weeks from now. And your buyer says, I don't care what your record says, here tomorrow. Right? Those kinds of mistakes and those kinds of screw ups happen. I don't think I even have to make the case. I'm sure everybody on this call knows that it happens all the time. I did a straw poll, and all the time was the most responded answer. And when I asked, how much does it cost you when that happens? The answer was, well, it happens either sometimes or often. And it happens, and when it happens, the most popular answer was, it costs us a painful amount of money to deal with. It also costs people a lot of money to hedge against the possibility of it happening. And this is all born from the fact that your database record and my database record are not the same, or we can't be sure that they're the same. I used to be a retailer, and we spent, I think, $1 billion on our ERP system, but it could only tell us what we thought we knew. It gave us no intel on our suppliers or their suppliers or their suppliers. So the last 5 years have been, the approach to that problem has been, I call transparency. Transparency or web portals. And transparency, the problem is, yes, you can now know, everybody has a single source of truth, but everybody now knows it's back to that nudity problem. You know too much. And so even the early projects I was involved in around enterprise blockchain, back when I was at IBM, you're starting to see problems there where we got a lot of them involved because we said, hey, get on this blockchain. They're like, what's a blockchain? We're like, don't worry about it, but we're going to put you on stage in front of 30,000 people in Vegas if you get to join our blockchain network. Well, now everybody's sobering up and saying, wait a minute, I'm putting my data in what? Who can see that? Who can see the metadata going on? It's not okay. The alternative to that is, hey, I'm a big, powerful company and I'm going to make you use my web portal. But even then, that company's web portal can't be sure that your internal QuickBooks or spreadsheet or maybe SAP system actually has the data that you typed into that portal. Maybe you used an API, but again, I still have no verified certainty that your record is the same as the record that is in my web portal system. So there's the problem. So again, by going from the idea of blockchain being a distributed database to being a common frame of reference, we get, and also the fact that according to last year's survey by Forrester, 233 companies, 75% are expecting to move to public blockchain. And with all this DeFi stuff going on, it looks like it's accelerating. Now we have the stage set for the baseline protocol. And yeah, it's a set of tools and libraries that help enterprises coordinate complex multi-party business processes, asset transfers, payments, with privacy and without putting any of that data on the blockchain itself. If you're familiar with ZK snarks is, I think, most succinctly described as, I have a secret. I'm going to tell you an attribute of that secret without telling you what the secret is. It's a nice magic trick. Baselining is a little bit different. It's saying we have a secret and we need to be sure that we have the same secret. And we're going to use this machine over here to confirm that, to keep track of that. But we're not going to tell that machine anything about our secret, and anybody looking at that machine wouldn't even know we have a secret. That's baselining. It involves standards for messaging protocols like NATs and AMQP, peer-to-peer, point-to-point messaging, data standards, and the method by which you store these proofs of consistency and workflow integrity on that public bulletin board. So it's a pretty boring way of thinking about using a blockchain. It's not about smart contracts. It's not about instrumenting, you're not writing a lot of smart contracts. There's 3 baseline smart contracts and that's it. Everything else is off chain in zero-knowledge circuits and in your traditional systems of record, SAP, what have you. And I think that's why we're getting so much engagement by so many companies, SAP, and many others. Because more baselining means more of those products. It means reinforcing companies' choice in using those products and extending the value of those products, because now with compartmentalization, atomic compartmentalization, record by record, workflow by workflow, your system, traditional system of record, can be more certain that your counterparties have the same idea of what's true without, again, putting all the data in a big honeypot. We're now up to 1,800 community participants, and this is a week or 2 old, so it's probably much bigger now. It keeps growing. We're now in the middle of the drive to releasing the first draft of the standard, and we have a v0.1 reference implementation, and it's all on baseline-protocol.org. Just to wrap it up, I'll say that where you use baseline protocol is where you have a business process, multiple partners, and where the reduction of upfront capital expense is an attractive benefit for some or all of the parties. So your smaller entities can use, get onto your integration using OpEx, not CapEx. And where, say, over 20% of the partners involved are SMEs, do low volumes, and where where most primary partners maintain traditional systems of record and don't want to sunset them. And that include Excel or a Google spreadsheet or Quicken, all of which I think are either getting bolt-ons for baseline protocol or are now looking at integrating the compliance of the protocol into their core products. And that is really the goal. I think my job as the chair is to help promote a future 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, where you wouldn't have a product that isn't baseline certified, baseline compliant, and capable of baselining with other parties. The nice thing being, once you've done that once, you can baseline with anybody else so it's an n-log n kind of a proposition. Do it once, and you've got fairly little effort going forward from there. So key takeaways: private blockchains provide limited value because they're expensive, brittle, and create data silos. I actually think I will amend that. Private blockchains are really good shared databases. When you need one of those, you should use that. Public blockchains, I don't know that they unlock greater value, but they unlock a different value because they're easy, because they're always on, tamper-resistant, and can't lock you out of valid operations. That's a nice set of attributes to have. If you can do it in such a way that people looking at that thing can't figure out what you're doing with your counterparties, because I'm pretty sure if you're Walmart, you don't want Costco knowing what you're doing about invoices with your buyers and suppliers. Major industry player, and you don't want somebody analyzing that, whatever's going on that blockchain, for metadata or trace data that would give them an idea of volumes or some other way to game the system. With baselining, it's just a bunch of randomness. It's a bunch of hashes and some Merkle trees laid down in a cadence with a lot of chaff in such a way that it would be very hard, if not impossible, to get any meaningful patterns out of it. And finally, I'll close on this. The protocol enables enterprises to coordinate complex business processes without putting sensitive data on the chain or sensitive business logic on the chain. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
How did I do on time? I hope I didn't grandstand too long there.
No, not at all. You're absolutely fine on time. Did anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask about baseline? Okay, yeah, we've got one here. So with the baseline protocol, while it might not be possible to see what's being shared as it's just a hash, can't you determine that there's some activity going on as an external observer?
No, not if it's done properly in accordance with the standard. You would not know what hashes have any meaning to them. And it's about cadences, right? So you could run a Poisson distribution against it, but not if there's something laying down a hash, every block. It's just there's just going to be no way to ascertain anything's happening, and you wouldn't be able to. Information theory would drop it out. It's sort of the same way that it was really hard to back solve mortgage-backed securities because you couldn't figure out what the bundles did. But the standard is all about. I mean, the organization will always be about making sure that you can't that there is no information or unacceptable information lost by using a public blockchain or a private blockchain. And theoretically, you could use an Arduino in your closet as the common frame of reference, but then you probably wouldn't need some of the components of the standard to help with that, because part of the standard is enabling you to do what you would otherwise do on a private machine, but using a public machine to do it without the downsides of doing that. I hope that answered the question.
And another question, this is from Ben. He's saying, you mentioned that blockchain adoption may be accelerated by the interest around DeFi. What aspect of DeFi, in your opinion, would drive increased participation by companies in public blockchains?
Well, I don't know that I got a B in finance, so I'm not going to, I was an MBA once, 25 years ago, but let me dodge that question, but hopefully be useful in the dodge. And that is, folks like Nick and myself, we're technology, middleware, careers. And I kind of took, I, for one, I won't speak for anyone else, kind of took a detour away from DeFi. I wasn't focused on DeFi. I was like, yeah, I'm focused on IT and, CIO, CTO, CSOs, and providing value to them in the operations side, right? So supply chains and other kinds of operations. A funny thing happened on the way to the forum, though, because now it seems obvious from where we stand today after a couple of years of doing this, that what we're really looking at is a new what is the value of baselining? Well, you can pay me to help you get baseline, just like you can pay me to get you a private or public blockchain, right? Or get you on the blockchain. And that's one kind of business around this stuff, enablement. But there's another business that says, if you're baselined, we think you're with your counterparties, and depending on how deeply that baselining workflow goes all the way back, we think that screw ups between you and your counterparties are going to happen less often, maybe as much as 10x. I'm willing to bet it's 10x as this thing rolls out. And if that is the case, your insurance is going to go down. We're going to finance your invoices because we're a lot less worried about not getting paid. We're going to cover that surety for less. And all that can be done DeFi style now. And so companies like Centrifuge and not to plug my own sister company, but Codify Assets, these companies will now see a real opportunity at the termination point of baselining. There's no token in baseline. There's no tokenization in baselining. In fact, if you have a baselined record, you have taken away some of the need to tokenize that record onto a blockchain until such point that you want to sell it to a bunch of people through, say, Centrifuge as a invoice that in a tranche that you're going to sell DeFi style with MakerDAO, which is what Centrifuge does. Very exciting company, I think. And no, they don't pay me to say that. I just think that's the right pattern. It's like, hey, I can get paid right now, and my buyer can pay in 45 days, and everybody's happy. And DeFi folks are making a bet on the success of that workflow, but they can be more confident of it because the buyer and the supplier, the buyer can't say, "Oh, I didn't get the memo. I have no record of this invoice," or I fat fingered an extra zero in that invoice. You can be sure that both parties, without repudiation, have the same record. Things can still go wrong, but not that. So I hope that explains it.
Thanks, John. There was just this was just a comment from a couple of comments that I'll read out as well in case people hadn't seen them. One from Nick Kritikos. Without baseline, its tokenized invoice represents the view of one party. With baseline, it represents the view of all the participants in that invoice. And then just on the DeFi side, Mark Haddle mentioned that DeFi allows for digital assets to be tokenized and exchanged between parties. Private blockchains aren't very efficient at this, especially if the assets are eligible to be offered to a wider audience that might not be members of that private blockchain. Public blockchains allow a better landscape for this tokenization and exchange, and buyers can be confident that there exists only one true asset to be exchanged. Well,
yeah, I think both. I have no further comment on those. That's both correct statements, I think. Yeah, baseline-protocol.org. It's probably important to know that the baseline protocol, Dan, our illustrious leader Dan Burnett, is the chair of the baseline protocol, or the Oasis working group, or the forgive me, the
Project Governing Board,
PGB, the Project Governance Board that regulates the baseline protocol organization, and it's two of the three earliest sponsors were the Ethereum Foundation and the EEA. So we're kind of all joined at the hip on this stuff.
And certainly with future EA meetups, we hope to have some of the other companies involved in the baseline protocol be talking as well. You know, there's just a lot of folks who've been involved in enterprise Ethereum for a long time. You know, got involved in baseline, so it's yeah, and they're doing some really interesting projects with some very high-profile people, as you know, John touched on there. So it's yeah, I'm sure we'll be hearing more through these meetups too, which will be great.
Thanks, Connor. Yeah, I think for a lot of us who've been in the fields on this for a long time, we've had a feeling of emperor's closiness for a while. And I think what's exciting about baselining is that it's so boring. And after 5 years of hyperbole, partly perpetrated by folks like me, it's, you know, boring is sort of the new exciting. We're like, oh, that makes sense. There's nothing I have to, there's no mysticism I have to employ here. And that's a good feeling. I think that's why a lot of people are coming this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I guess we can wrap up your talk there, and just yeah, wanted to say thank you very much, John, for you know, coming here and you know, sharing with everyone about baseline. You know, we've managed to secure our speakers for the next meetup that's going to be happening well, on the 24th of February. So we're going to have Adam Clark, the CTO of Finality. He's going to be giving a presentation there, and also Daniel Norkin, the co-founder and CEO of Envision Blockchain Solutions. And so we're really excited that you know, to hear from them. These are both individuals working for companies that have been doing a lot with blockchain for a number of years. Finality's been around for, you know, it's there to facilitate interbank payments. It's you know, one of, I guess, the original kind of high profile projects that was earlier on called Utility Settlement Coin, and Envision Blockchain. They've been very involved in the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance as well as Baseline as well, and actually work with a number of different blockchain protocols too. So I think they'll have some really good stories there to tell too. So yeah, we'll be publishing details of the meetup, I guess imminently, on our meetup page, and the talks from today's meetup will be available. It should be within the coming days, and yeah, we look forward to seeing everyone again. And thank you again to John and Dan for your talks as well. It's awesome to have you guys here too.